My name is Jason Lowe. I'm the youth minister here at Bread of Life, and I'd like to welcome you to our event tonight on the topic of mental health. And this I think is an issue that touches maybe everyone here in some way, shape, or form. I have a friend of about 20 years and a friend of about 13 years. One who lives almost on the other side of the country, and the other who lives almost on the other side of the world. And both of them struggle with mental health. And so one of my roles in their lives is to come alongside them and to walk with them through just life, but also the challenge that they have in dealing with the things in their lives. And so there'll be times where my friend on the other side of the world, he'll text me, and just like usually it's a one-word text, and I'll know that it's time to pray. Sometimes I don't get the text until the morning when I wake up, but when I do, I'll pray for him. And I'm sure that many of us here have similar stories, friendships, or even ourselves have a struggle with mental health. And so I think it's really important for us as a church, at Bread of Life, but just Christians and the people of God, to be able to talk about this and to address it in our lives and in the lives of the people around us. Because the truth is that we have something that no one else has, which is Jesus, and that's really what we need to deal with all of life's issues, and including the ones that hinder us the most. And so I'm really excited about tonight's event, and for our guests tonight. Our speaker for the evening is DJ Chuang, and DJ is, when I met him and I tried to figure out what it is that DJ does, I realized that DJ is someone who wears a lot of different hats. And so he is a networker. I first met DJ at a doctor of ministry. Actually, no, it was an Asian American luncheon at Biola University, and so I thought he was like a professor or a pastor, but no, DJ wasn't those things. He's a networker. He loves the church and the community of God and connecting people within the community of God. He knows lots and lots of people and loves meeting many, many people. But that's not even what he gets paid to do. His actual job is more technology. He helps with like internet stuff. So if you ever seen it's called the domain name .bible, DJ will help you to set you up. If you want my name is Jason. If I want Jason.bible, you can have. Well, if you're out there, you're Jason, then we can fight for it. But Jason.bible, and DJ will help set you up with that domain. But also, and more pertinent to tonight, DJ has a passion to help the community of God to wrestle with mental health. And so he has had a podcast called Erasing Shame. And on that podcast, he just talks about mental health and how to be well and how to encourage others around us to be well. And so DJ will share a lot about his own story, and so I'm excited to have him here, as well as his wife Rochelle and son Jeremiah. We'll get to meet them a little bit later for our Q&A. But why don't we welcome DJ. Before DJ gets started, let me start us in a word of prayer. Father, I thank you for tonight and for DJ, and just for his faithfulness to you and for the work that you have done in his life. And so we pray tonight, Lord, that as he shares about his story and his heart, that you would encourage everyone here, that you would share your heart and your love with us, and that you would grant us wisdom and conviction to be proactive, to love those around us, to seek help ourselves, so that we can live out and demonstrate what it looks like when the people of God and the Spirit of God come into the lives of anyone, especially those who struggle with mental illness. And so we pray for this night, and we pray all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for being here tonight. You're spending Friday night at a church listening to me share a bit of my story. So very grateful for you making the investment of your time, and I hope to make this worthwhile for you. God has taken me on a journey that I have never expected, and perhaps He'll do that with some of you as well when you walk by faith, and that's part of the adventure. I'm very grateful to be here. My wife and son are here in the second row, and you'll get to meet them later. Rochelle is my wife of 24 years, and Jeremiah is my son of 22 years. And what I'm going to do in the first half of my chat is share the context of my life story and show you a few connection points that even connect to Bread of Life, and then how God's taken me on this adventure of life that He promises us in His Word, that He has come to give us life and life abundantly. So this is a snapshot. I don't think you can read everything on that, but it's a visual to help me remember my story to share with you. I'm 53 years old now, so I've had a lot of life experience, and I'm going to crunch it up into a few minutes so that at least you have a few highlights, and hopefully you can relate to. I was born in Taiwan to traditional Chinese parents. My dad's from Fujian, my mom's from Zhejiang, and I'm a Chuang. So Torrance is my Chinese name. And I came to the U.S. when I was 8, so I was in second grade. 我讲一点点国语. And we came to America. I was the oldest of 3 boys, so I'm the first son and 2 younger brothers. So I was 8, my second brother was 6, my youngest brother was 1. And that's the first photo is me and my youngest brother in Taiwan in black and white. And then we spent most of our life in Northern Virginia, so about an hour west of DC, in a tiny little town named Winchester, Virginia. They have an apple festival every May, and it's a little colonial town. We were one of 5 Asian families, and we ran a tiny little motel business with 12 rooms. So I had to learn how to fold sheets and make beds and clean the towels, and things that I really didn't like doing. But it was the family business, and well, that's what we all had to do. And I did pretty good in school. So out of the 3 boys, I did the best. I wasn't top of class, but I did pretty well in school in math and science. And so because I'm good in math and science, I went to engineering at Virginia Tech. But God puts unusual people in my life to draw me to Himself. And that's what those green lines indicate. So one of the first persons that God brought into my life was a used car salesman. And he visited us at our little motel when we first started that business back in 1977. And he was from a church, and he just invited the 3 boys to come to Sunday school. And they would provide the rides faithfully every week. And so starting 6th grade, I got to go to church with my 2 brothers pretty much every week. The Martins would come by and pick us up, take us to church for Sunday school, and bring us back. Under the condition that my dad said, which was, you can only go to Sunday school, not church. Okay, well, that was fine. My dad is not a Christian, but he respected the Christian community for being good, moral, upright people, and my dad wanted the good exposure for us as children. But as God's word was sown in my life, in His time, I responded. So the second person that God brought into my life is a truck driver from Ohio, and I think his name was Will. And before he checked out of the motel, he invited me, my second brother, and my dad to receive Christ. He just shared the gospel very simply. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. Whoever believes in Him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Would you like to receive Jesus? And I think at that point, because I saw the routine of life, even as a teenager, that it seemed like life was just going to school, graduating, getting a job, married, have kids, and rinse and repeat. And there was a yearning in my heart that life had to be more than that. And so that was my first step of faith, and God started working in me. The third person God brought into my life was first year of college. He was a chemical engineering professor, even though I was an electrical engineer. And he facilitated, hosted a Chinese Bible study at Virginia Tech. And that's where I was thrown into leadership positions. And that's where I began to study God's Word. And I was baptized in first year, right around Easter, first year of college. And my dad gave another warning: be careful that the church doesn't take your money with tithing. So my dad had some cautions along the way, because he wanted to make sure that my life was safe, and the way he lived a very moral, upright life, but Christianity had some things that were kind of funny, and he was cautious. But I ventured a little bit more in my faith. And then I graduated with a computer engineering degree. Oh, by the way, I went to Virginia Tech. There's a little computer up there because Virginia Tech, back in 1984, was one of the first colleges to require buying computers. And I wanted to get a computer. So. Anyways, so I graduated from Virginia Tech, worked a couple years in Maryland as an engineer, and then God brought another person in my life, a retired Navy senior chief. And he used to be just like a sailor with a foul mouth and all that, but God saved him and softened his heart. And we met over a computer bulletin board. So this is pre-internet, pre-iPhone, okay? So we had to use telephones and modems to connect and so on and so on. But I wound up being at his house probably 3 or 4 times a week, and he discipled me, he prayed with me. He became the father figure who could speak my love language and showed me that I was more than just being a dutiful, responsible son. That God loved me for who I was, not for what I could do. And that was transformative in my life. And during the second year with him, the scripture Matthew 9:36 kept coming up again and again in different contexts. That the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And when I hear the word of God echoed, I think that's God trying to get through. And I responded to that with a sense of calling, and I went to Dallas Seminary. And when I shared that with my discipler, he said he'd been praying for that specific seminary and that call for over a year, that God would reveal it to me. So I took that as a great confirmation. And so I started at Dallas Seminary in January of 1991. In March of 1991, I went to the ordination of a guy named Dan Lowe, who's now your English pastor. And that's how far back that I've gotten connections with different people along the way. So I've known your pastor Dan Lowe longer than my wife, Rochelle. We just figured that out tonight, just to make sure our timeline was in sync. And so I spent 5 years at Dallas Seminary getting a Master of Theology. I met my wife along the way there. Thanksgiving in 1991, we became friends. We got to be more than friends over email. Again, this is before internet and before social media. But God started drawing us together, and we took that leap of faith and got married the day after I graduated from seminary. And then we took another leap of faith and went to my first ministry assignment in Raleigh, North Carolina. And that's where my son was born, Jeremiah. And my first ministry assignment there was serving as a youth director in a traditional Chinese church. Now, even though I grew up in a traditional Chinese family, I had no clue about the ministry in the Chinese church. So all the things I learned in seminary were great for white churches, not so great in Chinese churches. So it was a very difficult first year. Second year, I toned it down and learned the culture, and I think I served people better, but as God would direct, we took We finished the 2-year term that I had committed to and transitioned up to Northern Virginia to be a part of a new church that a friend of mine from seminary named Ray, so there's 2 Rays in my timeline, Ray Chang started a new church in Northern Virginia called Ambassador Bible Church that was mostly Korean American and wanting to be multi-ethnic. And so this is 1997, and I served there as an associate pastor for 3 years, and also was bivocational, so I started being an engineer also at AT&T, and then 3 years later, at the age of 34, which will be the year 2000, that ended my pastoral ministry. I stepped down from ministry, not because of moral failure, but because of confusion and miscommunication, and the bottom dropped out. I spent 10 years trying to be a pastor, and I realized I could only be an okay pastor in hindsight. And God needs more than an okay pastor, and the way God worked in my life was to begin pulling me out of just living out of duty and responsibility and getting in touch with my heart, my passion, my desires, and using all of me to serve in God's kingdom. As the bottom dropped out, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And part of the reasons I wanted to show you these pictures, second pictures of my family in front of our motel. The third picture was my self-image. So that was a self-portrait in my head. I saw myself as this is a photo from first year college at home. And I saw myself as this tiny little person in this huge big world, not knowing what to do, except to be dutiful and responsible. But when at the age of 34, I ran out of energy, I ran out of will, I ran out of steam. So I was in deep depression. The last photo is of my family with my son, 2 or 3 years old. But so the bottom fell out. I had to admit I needed help. And I got on medication. I got therapy. I learned as much as I could about mental health because I needed to take care of myself. I had to be responsible for taking care of my health. I couldn't just hit cruise control on my life. So seeing a counselor was something that I had been so afraid to do because there was the stigma and the shame, and that's for crazy people, right? And I had to surrender and realize I needed help, and this would be helpful. Even though I didn't see myself as that bad, that desperate, this became a path of healing and help. So as I learned about mental health, I want to invite you to learn along with me. So take out your smartphones if you have those with you. We're going to take a little quiz online and introduce you to some of the things about mental health. Now, a lot has changed over the past 19 years, but this is back 19 years ago, as the professionals, psychiatrists, and psychologists understood bipolar disorder, it seemed kind of extreme. But now the understanding is that mental illness or bipolar disorder, mood disorders, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, it's more along a continuum. Okay, so all of us have some level of mood swing, and a few of us get to qualify for that diagnosis and need medication and extra effort as self-care. So if you're there, you can sign in with an alias and participate. And what we're going to do here is go to the screen, if it would let me. this is where I need to test the tech. And show. Okay. Let's see, how many of you have signed in? But I'll take a look here. Okay, you have to sign in. Oh, look at all the people. All right, we're ready to go. 13 people are in. Join in whenever you want to. 17. Okay. So the screen will still be up there. You can still join at any time. We've got 10 questions. Jump in when you're ready. Okay, first question. People with mental conditions are more likely to be violent. True or false? We'll make the quiz really simple. I couldn't change the font size, so I'll read the question out loud. People with mental conditions are more likely to be violent. Actually, on your phone, you'll be able to see that, right? Okay, so vote true or false. Hey, 32 people are, 34 people are. That's great, that's great. Okay, good. Give you a few more seconds to vote. I still see some phones up. Are you ready? Okay, you don't have to vote on every question, but we want to move it along. I want to make a lot of time for question and answer. I think it's more interesting to have a conversation than to hear the monologue. Yeah, see. Okay. Hey, look at that! False wins. And the correct answer is false. Good job. Only 3 to 5% of violent acts can be attributed to someone with a serious mental condition. In fact, people with mental disorders are more likely to be victims of violence and abuse than perpetrators of it. Okay, we're learning something here. So actually, when people are having an episode with mental illness, oftentimes police and security people don't know what to do, and they overcompensate, overreact, and become violent with the person that's struggling because they don't know how to diagnose the symptom. Number 2, research shows that therapy is less effective than medication. Second question, true or false? Research shows that therapy is less effective than medication. True or false? Hey, you're voting a lot at 42-55. Wow, we're getting a good head count. 62, awesome. Okay, the false, people are voting false, and the correct answer is false. Hey, you're catching on, fantastic. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to treatment. Everyone has and deserves an individualized plan. For many, therapy and self-care are go-tos for managing their conditions. For others, medication is a must. All right, let's move along. Number 3, employees with mental health conditions are often less competent. True or false? Employees or students, those of you that are in school, with mental health conditions are often less competent. Okay, we'll turn off the voting after 60 or so. All right, and the right answer. Oh, look at that. Okay. Right answer is false. Most sufferers are actually productive employees and students. In fact, mental conditions are often linked with high intelligence. You have more brain activity, right? Too much, you might say. That said, if you think your condition is getting in the way of your work, discuss accommodations with your boss. All right, next question, number 4. The prevalence of mental health conditions is roughly the same for all ethnicities. True or false? The prevalence of mental health conditions is roughly the same for all ethnicities. True or false? Why is that funny? Okay, here we go. Ooh, even split. True or false? It's true. All right, here's why. Bingo. Mental conditions impact all ethnicities at very similar rates. There is no evidence to support one group being more prone than the other. However, cultural bias can impact how people experience their conditions and the kind of help they can receive. So there's a conception, and as I learned about mental illness in non-white cultures, that there's a sense that mental illness is only a white person's disease. But that's not true. The World Health Organization has measured that mental illness happens around the world with all kinds of countries and all kinds of cultures. And that includes us as Chinese and Asian Americans. Okay, number 5. We're moving along. Okay, let's move on. Women are more prone to mental health conditions than men. True or false? Women are more prone to mental health conditions than men. True or false? Okay, very good. False. All genders experience mental health conditions at similar rates. However, men are less likely to disclose their problems. Because of gender bias stigma, and women are often seen as hysterical or overly emotional for seeking help. So there are some gender stereotypes that affect how we perceive those who struggle with mental illness. All right, number 6. Successful people can suffer from serious mental health problems. True or false? Vote. You can vote. Successful people can suffer from serious mental health problems. Unanimous. Almost unanimous. Very good. This is called being high functioning. Any Sherlock Holmes fans here? Yeah, high functioning sociopath, right? This is called being high functioning. Just because a person is talented, social, or accomplished doesn't mean they aren't struggling. Symptoms are often hidden. Because of their accomplishment, they can hide behind those. Never assuming the whole story. All right. Number 7. Positive thinking can reverse symptoms. True or false? Positive thinking can reverse symptoms. True or false? Mental health symptoms. Mental illness symptoms. That would be a symptom, yes. Does it help? Ooh, pretty close, pretty close. Let's see what the quiz says. It is false. Okay, here's the explanation. Kind of a trick question, maybe you might say. The explanation is this: we wish it were so simple. There's no off switch, no easy fix. Mental conditions must be managed using therapy, self-care, medication, and alternative methods. Telling sufferers to think positively or snap out of it can be very stigmatizing. Okay, so I think that the sentence was, can positive thinking just take care of your symptoms? And it takes more than that for all of us. Okay. Number 8, mental conditions are exacerbated by poverty. True or false? Mental conditions are exacerbated by poverty. Hey, who's studying SAT? Can you explain what's exacerbated? Mental conditions are amplified, activated, caused, irritated by poverty. Okay, let's see. True. The answer is true. The intense emotional and physical effects of poverty can trigger and worsen mental conditions. Recent studies have shown that poverty comes with a higher rate of mental health problems as well as more severe and lasting cases. Basically, any stressor adds to the weight of mental health conditions. Number 9, doctors can misdiagnose mental conditions or not recognize symptoms. True or false? Doctors can misdiagnose mental conditions or not recognize the symptoms. Wow, you're voting fast. All right. Hey, 100%, and you're correct. Unfortunately, misdiagnosis rates remain high. That's not to say you should hate doctors. What it does mean is that you should feel empowered to ask questions, seek additional opinions, and voice your concerns if you think a diagnosis is incorrect. So if I could interject, one of the things about your own health care, not just mental health, but even your own physical health, emotional health, relational health, is that you have to be your own advocate, or your friends and your family have to be your advocate. The system can only do the mechanical kind of things, but you have to, you know yourself the best, and the people around you know yourself the best. So make use of all your resources. And number 10, last question. Mental conditions are largely hereditary. True or false? Mental conditions are largely hereditary. True or false? Okay. Ooh, pretty even split. Let's see. It is false. The science is still out. It's believed that people can be predisposed to mental health problems based on family history, but disorders are not always passed down. What has been proven is that environmental factors play a huge role. Well, thank you for playing along. These slides will be available online, so you can download them and share them with your friends and family if you like. The winner is Alias. Congratulations, Alias. You got 10 out of 10. Sorry, I gotta get back to the main screen here. Okay. A few more facts, and then we'll get to the Q&A. Someone might have handed out index cards, so if you want to write questions anonymously, we'll get to them in the Q&A section. Or you can use your smartphone and type in your questions anonymously at erasingshame.com/live. All right, we really want to speak to what is on your mind, whether for yourself or for a family or for friends that you might know, because mental health is very much a part of our human condition. And in the 21st century, we're just beginning to be on the pericope, on the front edge of making it safe to talk about. And it takes a lot of effort because we have so many generations of history of misunderstanding mental health and mental illness. Like in the past, it was something that was considered only a spiritual problem, and it's so much more. And in the past, it was something where people were electrocuted and just mistreated in so many ways because people didn't know what to do with these peculiar symptoms. So quick facts. Nearly 1 in 5 American adults have a diagnosable mental health condition every year. So look around the room. So along every pew that you're sitting at, there's probably 1 or 2 people that will experience some kind of struggle with mental health conditions. That could be as common as depression or anxiety, or it could be even more than that, where you need medication and extra professional help, extra learning about your self-care along the way. 46% of Americans will have a diagnosable mental health condition in their lifetime. So that's half of people in America. And I think the statistics are going to be pretty common across the world. These are numbers that I was able to research and find more readily. And partly because we're here in America and I speak English. And here's something to make note of, particularly for those of us that are Asian Americans or know of Asian Americans, is that Asian Americans are 3 times less likely than Caucasian Americans to seek mental health services. And we're going to touch on some of the reasons why it is difficult, or we are hesitant as Asian Americans to get mental health services. I alluded to that in my own story, and I'll tell you more about that. Major depression in youth has increased 4.35% over the last 6 years. That's over 2 million teenagers. And this has been unprecedented in history. People are speculating, experts are speculating why, but it's a serious issue. Over 70% of youth with major depression are still in need of treatment. So there's a majority of those who are struggling with depression that are not getting treatment for a variety of reasons. One is accessibility, one is personal resistance. Youth that do have insurance did not cover, youth with insurance that did not cover mental or emotional difficulties nearly doubled in 2017. So another reason for the lack of accessibility of mental health care. A few more facts before I get back to my story and then the Q&A. Common mental health conditions, just to give you a few handles on some of the words that you may hear about, and then what we can do about it. Anxiety disorders, uncontrollable extremes of feelings, of nervousness, of fear, of dread, symptoms like sweating and rapid heartbeat. Anxiety. Depression, persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness, losing interest in activities they once enjoyed. Post-traumatic stress disorder, intrusive symptoms associated with traumatic events. Sometimes that's flashbacks, nightmares. Bipolar disorder, that's a mood disorder with dramatic highs and lows in moods, energy, and ability to think clearly. Or I should say the loss of ability to think clearly. And schizophrenia, losing touch with reality, often in the form of hallucinations, delusions, and extreme disordered thinking and behavior. So these are just some of the common mental health conditions. There's many, many more, 30, 40, 50, depending on who you count. I'll leave it to the professionals to figure that out. But when you have symptoms that are just unusual with everyday living, and especially if it hinders with your normal functioning, it's worth a conversation and getting that checked out. You don't have to understand it to get help. A couple statistics just to show you how serious it is. In 2017, female high school students reported seriously considering suicide at nearly twice the rate of their male counterpart. If you can't see the numbers, this is 2017, 22%, that's 1 in 5 female considers suicide, with men 11.9%. That's alarming, and it is continuing to rise unless something changes, and I hope that we can be part of that change. And then the suicide rate, so not just thinking about it, actually dying by suicide for 15 to 19-year-olds has increased 33% since 2009. This is a serious condition. And a footnote at the bottom, the suicide rate for Asian and Pacific Islander adolescents increased the most in terms of percentages by 78%. One of the things I've been learning, and I'm still in that learning process, is when it comes to depression, anxiety, and especially suicide, we have to talk about it if we're going to make progress in preventing it. So we want to cultivate that conversation tonight, but not just tonight, but hopefully open it up for your community in the months, weeks and months ahead. And your pastor and your leadership has been open to doing that by having me kind of start that conversation. Well, since 2000, I've learned to take care of myself decently well. However, in February of 2017, in Anaheim, this is a picture of the Anaheim packing house, one of the popular food halls here in Southern California. I had gone on a business trip in January where I had bronchitis, laryngitis, and insomnia. So I was rather upset that I was so sick. And so the next time, on February 1st, I had a higher mood swing where I was super creative, I didn't need much sleep, I was going from place to place, very extroverted, and thought I was reading minds, thought I was doing Jedi mind tricks. I really wanted to get into this secret restaurant called the Blind Rabbit at the Anaheim Packing House. And I was supposed to meet my wife and son there to celebrate for dinner. And by the end of that evening, the security would not let me back in, and I was handcuffed, and I was taken in a squad car, and I was confined to the psych ward for 3 days. Never thought that would be part of my story, but it became part of my story. It was a humbling, shattering time. I didn't know what to do with myself. I caught up on my sleep since I had insomnia. They put me on medication, so I was pretty sedated. It was Super Bowl weekend. And the doctors were merciful to me and let me out in 3 days. Sometimes people are still confined for 5 days, 7 days, whatever they decide. But I was out in 3 days on the condition that I would see my doctors, my psychiatrist, and my psychologist. However, it took 9 months for me to recover where I got a sense of normalcy. 9 long months. I want to share with you some of the things that I had to go through in my recovery process. So this was harder than my bottoming out in the year 2000 and 2001. I took a month and a half off from work. I had to slow down, so I had to stop wearing 5 hats at a time and just one at a time. It was the very simple thing just to get up out of bed each day, eat a decent meal, take a walk outside, and unplug from social media or reading anything, because for days and weeks on end, it took all the mental, emotional energy I had just to take one step at a time. And knowing that my wife and son were supporting me was one of my lifelines to hang on and not to give into depression and not to give up. My wife also started a Facebook group to ask for prayer from people that I knew, near and far. And when I knew there were 400 people praying for me, that helped me to hang in there a little bit longer. I was reminded of Star Trek and Captain Kirk. I want to live. And that little snippet of video kept me going, because it was hard going each and every minute, each and every hour, each and every moment. I took all the help that I could get. The medication took about 5 to 6 months to dial in. So I had to readjust my whole medication mix. What worked before no longer works. Counseling, I was seeing my counselor every week. I recited Psalm 23 and Lord's Prayer by memory every day, sometimes repeatedly, because I just needed to hold on to something in my brain, because all the negative thoughts and ideas were just oppressive. I couldn't get rid of them. They dominated me, and I couldn't do anything with them. I made a playlist with Be Still My Soul, found 13 versions of them, and just hit repeat. I just had to put something different in my brain, because in and of itself, it was just totally messed up. and burnt out. Sleep was an anchor for me. It still is. I sleep about 9 hours a night now, plus a nap in the afternoon, which means the rest of the time when I'm awake, I have to be more efficient, and I have to slow down, which is probably the hardest adjustment for me because I do like wearing multiple hats, but one at a time. Exercise, I do an exercise called Orange Theory, which is a boutique exercise thing, 1 hour high interval intensive training with a coach cheering you on, actually barking at you the whole time, with a whole class working at that thing. So, and orange is my favorite color, so I had to do that. Church life, certainly prayer from my small group, from my Facebook group. I go to a little church called Saddleback, attending the mental health events there. They had a depression support group that met every week. Just to be with people helped me to know that I was not alone. And I needed all the help I could get, spiritual, physical, relational, personal, all those habits. And then manage my work life. I happen to be blessed with a job where I work on the internet as an internet engineer. And so I have flexible hours. I get paid when I work, and I don't when I don't. So I work about 30 hours a week, and God's provided for our needs, and we're okay. So thank God for that. So, and the photo is me getting to share my testimony at a mental health gathering at my church. So as I have opportunities to share my story, I always say yes now, because it is part of not only my healing journey, because when you share something that has been a secret in your life, and you found hope and healing out of that, it gives other people hope and healing as well. So having been an engineer, that's my skill. I had to get in touch with the other part of my life, which is my feelings. So a chart that looks something like this is really helpful for me to put words to my feelings, because until you can name it, you can't work on it. And when it comes to feelings, there's something that's behind those feelings, and that's where counseling is helpful, that's where talking to friends, someone you trust, is really helpful to get yourself out of that dark hole of the feelings that, the vague feelings can just trap you, and you need to release it, otherwise they'll come out sideways, either physical symptoms or other bad kinds of symptoms. A couple more slides and then we'll get to Q&A. In the medical world, they use something called the biopsychosocial model, which refers to the biological, psychological, and social aspects of your human being. And that's good, but it's leaving out one very important component of who we are as human beings. So there are good Christian counselors and doctors that put together a model that's biopsychosocial and spiritual to account for all parts of our humanity. I know this slide's not as legible as I'd like, so go to erasingshame.com/slide. You can get a nice picture of this entire slide, and you can read all the words that are on there about how the human person, you, are a being that's in relationship biologically, psychologically, socially, and spiritually. And you need to address all of those aspects of who you are to experience total healing. And leaving any one of those parts out, you're missing out on a full life that God has for you. Mark 12:30 alludes to that. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. Alluding to all the various aspects of who we are. Next slide is just to illustrate to you how it can be very difficult to see some people that might be parents and a bit older, no longer in school. There are challenges for parents recognizing their children's depression, partly because it's hard to tell what's the normal ups and downs of just being a kid versus what's actually possibly depression or anxiety. Another reason might be that youth is good at hiding feelings, or we don't know how to talk about feelings partly because of our culture, or partly because of personality, but yet feelings are such an important part of who we are. It's not all of who we are, but it is a part of who we are. And feelings are not reality, feelings are just feelings, but they are an indicator on the dashboard of your life that something's going on, and you need to pay attention to it and handle it appropriately. This is a quick checklist that professionals will also use. It's called the PHQ-9. And a quick checklist to see if you might be experiencing depression, you or one of your friends or someone you know. I'll go ahead and read through it just real quick, and just for your consideration. Loss of interest or pleasure in doing things, feeling depressed or hopelessness, difficulty with sleeping. Number 4, feeling fatigue or lacking energy. Number 5, overeating or loss of appetite. Number 6, feeling like a failure or that you've disappointed your family or disappointed yourself. Number 7, difficulty concentrating. Number 8, moving or speaking so slowly, or the opposite, speaking so quickly and being fidgety. Number 9, thinking you'd be better off dead or wishing you could hurt yourself somehow. And this is a diagnostic tool that some professionals use. If you have more than half of these symptoms for longer than 2 weeks, get help. Please get help. If someone else you notice has these symptoms, go along with them and help them. Life is too important, and we care about your life more than your accomplishments, more than your social status, more than all the other things that we might consider to be part of identity. So rather than focusing on just all the symptoms, I want to give you some tools that would be helpful to you. 8 sources of strength. So rather than only dealing with our problems when we're in crisis mode, these are 8 things that you want to incorporate into your life and make it a part of your personal health checklist on a regular basis, maybe once or twice a year. When you do a personal retreat, do a checkup. Going from the orange and counterclockwise. Family support, positive friends, mentors, healthy activities, generosity, spirituality, medical access, and mental health. This is something I found from Sources of Strength. That's the name of the website. And it's a peer-led high school curriculum that's freely available. It's been evidence-based, and maybe we'll do some research and find out if you can give some training on that. A very useful tool to help you live a well-rounded and healthy life for yourself and for your friends and for your church community here. Tips for managing anxiety or stress. Again, download the slides at erasingshame.com/live, and you can see some very practical tips for managing anxiety or stress. And something that your brain is wired to do if you just take a deep breath. Take about 5 to 10 seconds just to breathe in. Go ahead and just try that with me. And slowly breathe out through your mouth. One more time, breathe in through your nose. Breathe out. So physically, it's connected to your brain, and when you do that 4 or 5 times, it will bring down your level of stress automatically. And there's other things that you need to do too, but when things feel overwhelming, your brain's not thinking clearly, there's a sense of stress and anxiety, pause, take a breath, and then as your mind clears up, get oriented, get the help as you need. All right, last few slides. Here's some of the most frequently questions that I get asked. What do you do to someone who's struggling? What do you do or say to someone who's struggling? So someone you know at school, someone shares privately with you that, hey, they're feeling really bad, and can I just talk with you? Number 1, genuinely express your concern. a question like, how are you really? Number 2, be a good listener. Be responsive and make eye contact with a caring approach and have no judgment. Active listening and just being a listener to hear those feelings come out is a very helpful posture. Number 3, offer support and connect them to help if needed. Ask the question, how can I help, if that's appropriate? Okay, and that comes from the good listening. It's amazing. You don't have to have the answers. Isn't that awesome? You just have to be a good listener. Or you just have to listen. Just be quiet and just listen. And something in that interaction helps the other person. And number 4, don't minimize their feelings. Don't shoot them. Don't rush them. Okay, just pause. If you can make that time, pause, listen, help them to confide in you and be a safe person. Second question, I have one more. What to say if someone has suicidal ideation? And it's thoughts of harming themselves, thoughts of suicide, wanting to give up on life. Number 1, show you care. Number 2, ask about suicide. Here's one of the key insights. Asking about suicide does not increase the risk of suicide. Okay, so if someone already has that idea, asking about it doesn't cause them to have it. It actually releases them to talk about it, and you can create that safe place to help them get out of that dark mode. If it's a crisis situation and they're just so desperate and they don't see another way out, get help. You can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, 1-800-273-TALK, and keep the person safe. Don't leave them alone. Make sure they have no means to harm themselves. As much time as you're able to give, support them and get them out of danger. If you're not able to give the time, hand them off, call someone. Call your pastor, call your youth group leader. Call me if you want. Number 3, listen not judgmentally. Number 4, give support and reassurance. Walk alongside in recovery. When someone's struggling, they need someone to walk alongside. They can't do it alone. That's why they're giving up. That's why they're crying out for help. And this last slide, what to do if you're struggling. Okay, in a room this size, there are a few of you that are struggling right now. And we want to say to you that there are people here in this room. Talk with them, someone that you trust. So this is where you have to discern, you have to get a sense of, well, who can you trust? Who do you feel safe with? And maybe you need to take that little step of faith and test it and see who you feel safe talking with. Talk to someone and ask for help. If you're hiding, we can't help you. If you're keeping it a secret, we can't help you. So you have to make that step, ask for help, and get the help you need. Number 3, if you're alone and you don't know who to turn to, you can text a crisis text line, 741-741. Go ahead and just put that into your phone for yourself or for your friend, because the situation of living in the 21st century with rising anxiety, rising stress, rising depression, it's very likely you're going to run into someone that needs help on the spot. And you can text home to 741-741. I have a friend named David Dickin, who is a trained counselor. He's on the other side anonymously with you to talk you through crisis and get you safe and get you help. Number 4, take a deep breath. Many deep breaths, as long as you need to get your head clearer and out of that panic. I've been there. Panic zone does not feel good, but take taking a walk outside, listening to music. Do something with your body. That's the other part I left out. Like, do something with my body instead of just sitting there wishing things would change. Do something with my body. That was very helpful. To walk outside, to take a step. And number 6, ask for prayer support. We have access to the Creator God, who's present not only in heaven, but here with you, and in you, and around you in a community like this. Prayer does change things. And one of the real gifts that I had was part of your prayer ministry here at Bread of Life. And I want to thank Marilyn Long for sending us a very special gift, a prayer shawl that I clung on to during those months of my recovery, to know that there was hope. These are the 3 things that really helped me, kind of my mantra that I had to repeat myself many times, that I'm not alone, it's okay to ask for help, and there is hope. I'm not alone, it's okay to ask for help, and I'm not alone. So that's not today. Jason's going to come and help us set up. We're going to take a look at your questions, both on the written cards, as well as those that you submitted online. And we're going to ask my wife to come up.
Yeah, so DJ, first of all, DJ, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate your heart and just your vulnerability with us and encouraging us to grow and become more equipped in this way. So we're going to transition to a time of Q&A. I know that a lot of you have already submitted questions digitally. In front of you there are index cards, so if you would prefer to do it old school, then you can do that. Just go ahead and if you need a pen, you can raise your hand. Our ushers have pens and they can supply you with one. You can write it down there. Alex is going to play some question writing music. And so if there's a question that you have not yet submitted, but would like to, go ahead and we'll take a minute or 2 to write any questions and submit them. And then I'm going to invite Rochelle and Jeremiah to come up and we'll get set up for our Q&A.